What is the primary distinction between the Council of Europe and the European Union? Particularly in the context of data protection laws. A. The Council of Europe enforces EU data protection laws. B. The Council of Europe is an international organization, whereas the EU is an economic and political union. C. The EU's primary focus is data protection. D. The Council of Europe and the EU have no connection. Correct answer. B. The Council of Europe is an international organization, whereas the EU is an economic and political union. What role does the European Parliament play in the legislative process of EU data protection laws? A. It proposes data protection laws. B. It approves and enforces data protection laws. C. It has no role in the legislative process. D. It develops legislation and supervises other institutions. Correct answer. D. It develops legislation and supervises other institutions. What principle guides the territorial scope of the GDPR regarding processing of personal data by controllers or processors? A. GDPR only applies to EU member states. B. GDPR applies if a data controller or processor is established in the EU. C. GDPR does not cover data controllers operating outside the EU. D. GDPR applies solely to digital data processing. Correct answer. B. GDPR applies if a data controller or processor is established in the EU. What is the difference between a data controller and a data processor in the context of GDPR? A data controller solely manages data storage. B. A data processor determines the purposes and means of processing. C. A data controller determines the purposes and means of processing. D. A data processor has no responsibility over data protection. Correct answer. C. A data controller determines the purposes and means of processing. How does the GDPR differentiate between personal, anonymous, and pseudonymous data? A. Anonymous data is identifiable data. B. Pseudonymous data is not considered personal data. C. Personal data relates to an identified or identifiable natural person. D. Pseudonymous data can be easily re-identified. Correct answer. C. Personal data relates to an identified or identifiable natural person. What constitutes a joint controller relationship according to the GDPR? A. Two entities sharing data with third parties. B. Two controllers determining the purposes and means of processing together. C. A controller subcontracting a processor. D. Two independent organizations processing data independently. Correct answer. B. Two controllers determining the purposes and means of processing together. What are the lawful grounds for processing personal data under the GDPR? A. Consent, legal obligation, and contractual necessity. B. Consent, legal obligation, and public interest. C. Consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests. D. Consent, public interest, and contractual necessity. Correct answer. C. Consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests. What is the significance of the GDPR's accountability principle for data controllers and processors? A. It mandates technical safeguards. B. It obligates controllers and processors to demonstrate compliance. C. It focuses on data minimization. D. It requires anonymization. Correct answer. B. It obligates controllers and processors to demonstrate compliance. What are the key principles of data processing under the GDPR? A. Accuracy, transparency, and storage limitation. B. Lawfulness, transparency, and consent. C. Fairness, storage, and anonymization. D. Data minimization, integrity, and consent. Correct answer. A. Accuracy, transparency, and storage limitation. How does the GDPR apply to the processing of children's data in the context of information society services? A. Children's data can be processed without restriction. B. Parents must provide consent for children under 18. C. Processing requires parental consent for children under 16. D. Children's data processing is prohibited. Correct answer. C. Processing requires parental consent for children under 16. How does the GDPR handle special categories of personal data? A. It allows unrestricted processing. B. It prohibits processing except under specific conditions. C. It applies only to identifiable data. D. It restricts processing entirely. Correct answer. B. It prohibits processing except under specific conditions. What is the consequence of a processor infringing the GDPR by determining the purposes and means of processing? A. The processor remains a processor. B. The processor must terminate its contract. C. The processor is considered a controller for that processing. D. The processor faces fines. Correct answer. C. The processor is considered a controller for that processing. What are the responsibilities of a processor engaging a sub-processor under the GDPR? A. Sub-processors must adhere to separate contracts. B. The processor must inform the controller and ensure compliance. C. Sub-processors are not covered by the GDPR. D. The controller is responsible for managing the sub-processor. Correct answer. B. The processor must inform the controller and ensure compliance. What is the GDPR's approach to direct marketing? A. It prohibits all direct marketing. B. It allows direct marketing if explicit consent is obtained. C. It permits direct marketing with legitimate interest. D. It has no specific guidelines on direct marketing. Correct answer. C. It permits direct marketing with legitimate interest. How does the GDPR ensure data transfers to third countries are compliant? A. It mandates data protection contracts. B. It requires controllers to notify supervisory authorities. C. It restricts transfers to countries with adequate protection levels. D. It prohibits transfers entirely. Correct answer. C. It restricts transfers to countries with adequate protection levels. What is the primary difference between the European Court of Justice and the European Court of Human Rights regarding data protection? A. The ECJ only handles commercial data issues. B. The ECJ interprets EU law, while the ECHR upholds human rights. C. The ECHR oversees GDPR enforcement. D. The ECJ has no role in data protection. Correct answer. B. The ECJ interprets EU law, while the ECHR upholds human rights. How does the GDPR address household activities in its material scope? A. It excludes all household activities. B. It includes household activities that process data by automated means. C. It applies to all household activities. D. It excludes activities solely personal or familial. Correct answer. D. It excludes activities solely personal or familial. What is the GDPR's stance on data minimization? A. It limits the amount of personal data collected. B. It focuses on anonymizing data. C. It prohibits data storage beyond specific timeframes. D. It has no stance on data minimization. Correct answer. A. It limits the amount of personal data collected. How does the GDPR define sensitive data categories, and what is a key exception to processing them? A. It includes all personal data. B. It includes data revealing racial or ethnic origin, among others. C. It excludes genetic and biometric data. D. It prohibits processing without explicit consent. Correct answer. B. It includes data revealing racial or ethnic origin, among others. How does the GDPR address the accountability of controllers and processors? A. It mandates detailed record-keeping and compliance measures. B. It restricts data processing activities. C. It requires annual reports. D. It has no specific requirements. Correct answer. A. It mandates detailed record-keeping and compliance measures. How does the GDPR handle cross-border data transfers within the EU and EEA? It prohibits transfers entirely. B. It requires individual contracts. C. It allows transfers to countries with GDPR-like regulations. D. It permits free flow of data between EU/EEA countries. Correct answer. D. It permits free flow of data between EU and EEA countries. How does the GDPR ensure data breaches are managed appropriately? A. It mandates notification to supervisory authorities and affected individuals. B. It prohibits data breaches. C. It requires data processors to handle breaches alone. D. It mandates public disclosure. Correct answer. A. It mandates notification to supervisory authorities and affected individuals. How does the GDPR handle personal data retention? A. It mandates indefinite storage. B. It restricts retention to specified periods. C. It requires periodic audits. D. It prohibits data storage. Correct answer. B. It restricts retention to specified periods. How does the GDPR apply to the processing of genetic and biometric data? A. It prohibits their processing entirely. B. It applies to them as special categories. C. It allows unrestricted processing. D. It mandates encryption. Correct answer. B. It applies to them as special categories. What role does the European Data Protection Board, EDPB, play in data protection? A. It develops GDPR amendments. B. It supervises national data protection authorities. C. It provides guidance and monitors consistency. D. It has no role in GDPR implementation. Correct answer. C. It provides guidance and monitors consistency. How does the GDPR address data subject rights regarding automated decision-making and profiling? A. It prohibits profiling entirely. B. It grants the right to object and obtain explanations. C. It requires explicit consent for profiling. D. It permits unrestricted profiling. Correct answer. B. It grants the right to object and obtain explanations. How does the GDPR manage the interplay between the e-privacy directive and GDPR? A. It mandates data retention rules. B. It asserts GDPR provisions take precedence. C. It permits coexistence and complementarity. D. It prohibits all electronic communications. Correct answer. C. It permits coexistence and complementarity. How does the GDPR handle data protection impact assessments? DPIAs. A. It mandates DPIAs for high-risk processing. B. It allows voluntary DPIAs. C. It mandates DPIAs for all processing. D. It prohibits DPIAs. Correct answer. A. It mandates DPIAs for high-risk processing. How does the GDPR handle cross-border cooperation between supervisory authorities? A. It mandates supervisory authority meetings. B. It establishes a one-stop shop mechanism. C. It allows for supervisory autonomy. D. It mandates data subject consent. Correct answer. B. It establishes a one-stop shop mechanism. How does the GDPR ensure personal data security? A. It mandates encryption for all data. B. It requires appropriate technical and organizational measures. C. It restricts data collection. D. It mandates security audits. Correct answer. B. It requires appropriate technical and organizational measures. How does the European Commission contribute to the development of EU data protection laws? A. Enforces data protection laws. B. Proposes and drafts legislation. C. Arbitrates legal disputes. D. Supervises data protection authorities. Correct answer. B. Proposes and drafts legislation. The European Commission drafts legislation, including data protection laws like the GDPR, and submits them for review by the European Parliament and the Council of the EU. What is a primary function of the European Parliament in the legislative process? A. Implements data protection laws. B. Proposes amendments to legislation. C. Issues fines for data breaches. D. Supervises EU institutions. Correct answer. B. Proposes amendments to legislation. The European Parliament reviews proposed legislation and can propose amendments to ensure they reflect the views and interests of EU citizens. How does the European Council influence data protection policies in the EU? A. Directly legislates data protection laws. B. Defines priorities and sets political direction. C. Resolves disputes between data subjects and controllers. D. Oversees supervisory authorities. Correct answer. B. Defines priorities and sets political direction. The European Council consists of heads of state or government who guide the EU's political direction, influencing data protection policies through their decisions. How does the Court of Justice of the European Union, CJEU, contribute to the enforcement of data protection laws? A. Issues fines for violations. B. Interprets and upholds EU laws. C. Monitors the activities of supervisory authorities. D. Proposes new regulations. Correct answer. B. Interprets and upholds EU laws. The CJEU provides legal interpretations of EU laws, including data protection regulations, ensuring their consistent application across member states. What is a primary role of the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, in data protection? A. Enforces the GDPR. B. Reviews compliance of member states. C. Upholds the European Convention on Human Rights. D. Advises the European Parliament. Correct answer. C. Upholds the European Convention on Human Rights. The ECHR enforces the European Convention on Human Rights, including its provisions related to privacy and data protection. How does the European Commission ensure compliance with data protection laws? A. Proposes amendments to existing laws. B. Conducts audits of organizations. C. Coordinates with national supervisory authorities. D. Provides funding for data protection programs. Correct answer. C. Coordinates with national supervisory authorities. The Commission collaborates with national supervisory authorities to ensure consistent enforcement of EU data protection laws across member states. What is the role of the European Parliament's Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice, and Home Affairs, LIBE? A. Oversees data protection legislation. B. Enforces data protection laws. C. Proposes amendments to the GDPR. D. Monitors member state compliance. Correct answer. A. Oversees data protection legislation. The LIBE Committee reviews and influences data protection legislation, including laws like the GDPR. How does the European Commission's GDPR guidance website assist organizations? A. Provides detailed legal advice. B. Offers resources for compliance. C. Enforces GDPR regulations. D. Monitors organization compliance. Correct answer. B. Offers resources for compliance. The website provides guidance to help organizations understand and comply with the GDPR, including resources on data subject rights, international data transfers, and more. What is a key responsibility of the European Data Protection Board, EDPB? A. Issues fines for data breaches. B. Supervises national data protection authorities. C. Coordinates GDPR implementation. D. Proposes new data protection laws. Correct answer. C. Coordinates GDPR implementation. The EDPB ensures consistent application and enforcement of the GDPR, providing guidance and coordination among national supervisory authorities. What impact does the European Court of Human Rights have on data protection laws? A. Reviews the legality of EU laws. B. Provides judgments on human rights cases. C. Advises the European Commission. D. Enforces GDPR provisions. Correct answer. B. Provides judgments on human rights cases. The ECHR addresses cases related to the European Convention on Human Rights, including matters concerning privacy and data protection. How does the European Commission's role in proposing legislation impact data protection? A. Directly enforces data protection laws. B. Ensures consistency in member state laws. C. Guides member state implementation. D. Initiates the legislative process. Correct answer. D. Initiates the legislative process. The European Commission drafts and proposes legislation, including data protection laws, for review and approval by other EU institutions. How does the European Council's guidance influence the GDPR? A. Proposes amendments to the GDPR. B. Sets the legislative agenda. C. Reviews compliance reports. D. Enforces GDPR provisions. Correct answer. B. Sets the legislative agenda. The European Council's guidance shapes the political direction of the EU, influencing the legislative agenda and the development of laws like the GDPR. What is a primary function of the CJEU's rulings? A. Enforces EU data protection laws. B. Reviews proposed legislation. C. Provides clarity on EU laws. D. Supervises national courts. Correct answer. C. Provides clarity on EU laws. The CJEU interprets and clarifies EU laws, including data protection regulations, ensuring their consistent application across member states. How does the European Commission ensure organizations comply with the GDPR? A. Conducts audits of organizations. B. Provides GDPR guidance. C. Issues penalties for violations. D. Reviews compliance reports. Correct answer. B. Provides GDPR guidance. The Commission offers resources and guidance to help organizations understand and comply with the GDPR, including its implementation and enforcement. How does the European Parliament advocate for data protection? A. Reviews proposed legislation. B. Issues fines for GDPR violations. C. Coordinates with supervisory authorities. D. Provides GDPR training. Correct answer. A. Reviews proposed legislation. The European Parliament reviews and can propose amendments to data protection legislation, ensuring it reflects the interests of EU citizens. How does the EDPB support the GDPR's enforcement? A. Issues GDPR guidelines. B. Conducts compliance audits. C. Proposes amendments to the GDPR. D. Provides training for supervisory authorities. Correct answer. A. Issues GDPR guidelines. The EDPB provides guidelines to ensure consistent application and enforcement of the GDPR across member states. How does the European Commission's role differ from the European Parliament's? A. The Commission proposes legislation, while the Parliament reviews and amends it. B. The Commission enforces laws, while the Parliament supervises organizations. C. The Commission advises member states, while the Parliament proposes legislation. D. The Commission supervises supervisory authorities, while the Parliament drafts laws. Correct answer. A. The Commission proposes legislation, while the Parliament reviews and amends it. The Commission drafts and proposes laws, including data protection regulations, while the Parliament reviews, amends, and approves them. What is a key function of the CJEU in the context of data protection? A. Proposes amendments to data protection laws. B. Interprets and upholds EU laws. C. Supervises supervisory authorities. D. Reviews compliance reports. Correct answer, B. Interprets and upholds EU laws. The CJEU interprets EU laws, ensuring their consistent application and enforcement across member states. How does the European Commission's guidance impact data protection compliance? A. Provides resources for organizations. B. Ensures GDPR consistency. C. Conducts audits of organizations. D. Supervises supervisory authorities. Correct answer, A. Provides resources for organizations. The Commission offers guidance and resources to help organizations understand and comply with data protection laws, including the GDPR. What role does the ECHR play in data protection? A. Enforces GDPR provisions. B. Provides guidance to EU institutions. C. Upholds human rights, including privacy. D. Reviews compliance of member states. Correct answer, C. Upholds human rights, including privacy. The ECHR enforces the European Convention on Human Rights, including provisions related to privacy and data protection. How does the European Commission's role differ from the CJEU's? A. The Commission proposes laws, while the CJEU interprets and upholds them. B. The Commission supervises supervisory authorities, while the CJEU proposes laws. C. The Commission enforces laws, while the CJEU reviews them. D. The Commission provides guidance, while the CJEU amends legislation. Correct answer, A. The Commission proposes laws, while the CJEU interprets and upholds them. The European Commission drafts and proposes legislation, while the CJEU interprets and ensures its consistent application. How does the European Council influence the legislative process? A. Directly legislates data protection laws. B. Reviews compliance of member states. C. Defines the EU's priorities and political direction. D. Coordinates with supervisory authorities. Correct answer, C. Defines the EU's priorities and political direction. The European Council's guidance shapes the legislative agenda, influencing the development of data protection laws. How does the European Parliament contribute to data protection? A. Enforces GDPR regulations. B. Reviews and amends proposed laws. C. Coordinates with supervisory authorities. D. Conducts compliance audits. Correct answer, B. Reviews and amends proposed laws. The Parliament reviews and proposes amendments to data protection laws, ensuring they reflect the interests of EU citizens. How does the European Council's guidance impact data protection laws? A. Proposes amendments to the GDPR. B. Defines the legislative agenda. C. Reviews compliance of member states. D. Enforces GDPR provisions. Correct answer, B. Defines the legislative agenda. The European Council's decisions shape the legislative agenda, influencing the development of data protection laws like the GDPR. What is the role of the European Data Protection Board in the context of the GDPR? A. Drafts data protection laws. B. Oversees national supervisory authorities. C. Imposes penalties for GDPR violations. D. Conducts GDPR-related investigations. Correct answer, B. Oversees national supervisory authorities. How does the GDPR define sensitive personal data? A. Data concerning finances. B. Data related to employment. C. Data revealing political opinions, health information, and genetic or biometric data. D. Data about communication records. Correct answer, C. Data revealing political opinions, health information, and genetic or biometric data. What is the key responsibility of a data processor under the GDPR? A. Collects data directly from data subjects. B. Determines purposes and means of processing. C. Processes data on behalf of the controller following instructions. D. Ensures data accuracy and transparency. Correct answer, C. Processes data on behalf of the controller following instructions. What principle governs the collection and use of personal data under the GDPR? A. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. B. Consent and legitimate interests. C. Confidentiality and accountability. D. Data minimization and storage limitation. Correct answer. A. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. What is the GDPR's approach to pseudonymous data? A. Excludes it from its scope. B. Treats it similarly to anonymous data. C. Recognizes it as a valid security measure, still subject to data protection law. D. Considers it sensitive data. Correct answer. C. Recognizes it as a valid security measure, still subject to data protection law. What is required for a joint controller arrangement under the GDPR? A. Separate documentation for each controller. B. Clear delineation of responsibilities, made available to data subjects. C. A lead controller appointed by the European Data Protection Board. D. Full data sharing between controllers. Correct answer. B. Clear delineation of responsibilities, made available to data subjects. What is the relationship between the e-privacy directive and the GDPR? A. The e-privacy directive takes precedence over the GDPR. B. They apply simultaneously to all processing operations. C. The e-privacy directive complements and particularizes the GDPR in specific areas. D. They apply to separate areas of data protection law. Correct answer. C. The e-privacy directive complements and particularizes the GDPR in specific areas. How does the GDPR's legitimate interest criterion for processing compare to consent? A. Easier to justify. B. Requires a balancing test to weigh interests against the data subject's rights. C. Only applies in specific contexts. D. Requires explicit approval from a supervisory authority. Correct answer. B. Requires a balancing test to weigh interests against the data subject's rights. What is the significance of Article 26 of the GDPR? A. It defines the responsibilities of processors. B. It outlines the obligations for joint controllers. C. It establishes the right to data portability. D. It mandates data protection impact assessments. Correct answer. B. It outlines the obligations for joint controllers. What is the GDPR stance on processing special categories of personal data? A. Generally prohibits processing, with exceptions. B. Allows processing with consent from the data subject. C. Requires a specific license for processing. D. Considers them exempt from the GDPR scope. Correct answer. A. Generally prohibits processing, with exceptions. How does the GDPR handle data processing for political, philosophical, and religious purposes? A. Requires explicit consent for processing. B. Recognizes these as exceptions to the prohibition on processing sensitive data. C. Excludes these from its scope entirely. D. Requires an impact assessment for each processing operation. Correct answer. B. Recognizes these as exceptions to the prohibition on processing sensitive data. What is the primary purpose of the GDPR's data protection principles? A. To ensure uniformity in data protection practices. B. To safeguard fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals. C. To facilitate data sharing between EU member states. D. To streamline compliance requirements. Correct answer. B. To safeguard fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals. What defines the GDPR's material scope? A. Processing of data for commercial purposes only. B. Processing of personal data, wholly or partly by automated means or forming part of a filing system. C. Processing of data by EU-based entities only. D. Processing of data by national governments. Correct answer. B. Processing of personal data, wholly or partly by automated means or forming part of a filing system. How does the GDPR approach international data transfers? A. Prohibits all transfers outside the EU. B. Allows transfers to jurisdictions deemed adequate or through specific mechanisms. C. Permits transfers without restriction. D. Requires special consent for each transfer. Correct answer. B. Allows transfers to jurisdictions deemed adequate or through specific mechanisms. What is the role of the European Court of Justice, ECJ, concerning data protection law? A. Drafts legislation on data protection. B. Interprets EU law, including data protection cases. C. Oversees national supervisory authorities. D. Enforces GDPR compliance. Correct answer. B. Interprets EU law, including data protection cases. What responsibilities do controllers have under the GDPR regarding processing operations? A. Minimal documentation. B. Compliance with all GDPR principles and documentation requirements. C. Delegation of responsibilities to processors. D. Only report breaches. Correct answer. B. Compliance with all GDPR principles and documentation requirements. What is required of data controllers when engaging data processors under the GDPR? A. No specific requirements. B. They must ensure processors implement appropriate security measures and enter into a written contract. C. Immediate reporting of all processing activities. D. Regular audits by the EDPB. Correct answer. B. They must ensure processors implement appropriate security measures and enter into a written contract. How does the GDPR approach further processing of personal data? A. Allows for all further processing. B. Requires a compatibility test to ensure it aligns with the original purpose. C. Permits further processing only with new consent. D. Prohibits all further processing. Correct answer. B. Requires a compatibility test to ensure it aligns with the original purpose. What is the primary objective of the GDPR's accountability principle? A. To enforce strict data protection standards. B. To require documentation and demonstration of compliance by controllers. C. To centralize enforcement under the European Commission. D. To impose penalties for non-compliance. Correct answer. B. To require documentation and demonstration of compliance by controllers. What action did the GDPR introduce to ensure data processing transparency? A. Public reporting of all processing operations. B. Mandatory privacy notices and clear information for data subjects. C. Full disclosure to supervisory authorities. D. Restrictions on international data transfers. Correct answer. B. Mandatory privacy notices and clear information for data subjects. What is one key factor determining whether the GDPR applies to a non-EU entity's data processing activities? A. Offering goods and services to EU residents. B. Number of employees in the organization. C. Annual revenue of the organization. D. Relationship with EU member states. Correct answer. A. Offering goods and services to EU residents. The GDPR applies to entities not established in the EU if they offer goods or services to EU residents or monitor their behavior. Which of the following accurately defines the GDPR's territorial scope? A. It applies only to entities based in the EU. B. It applies to all entities processing EU citizens' data. C. It applies to entities processing personal data in the EU or offering services to EU residents. D. It applies only to entities processing data outside the EU. Correct answer. C. It applies to entities processing personal data in the EU or offering services to EU residents. The GDPR covers processing by entities established in the EU or targeting EU residents. Which principle ensures that data processing is limited to specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes? A. Proportionality. B. Accountability. C. Purpose limitation. D. Transparency. Correct answer. C. Purpose limitation. This principle ensures data is only processed for specific purposes, preventing unauthorized or incompatible uses. What is a key characteristic of valid consent under the GDPR? A. It must be implied. B. It must be easy to withdraw. C. It must be indefinite. D. It must be revocable only by a court order. Correct answer. B. It must be easy to withdraw. The GDPR requires that consent is as easy to withdraw as it is to give. Which of the following is not one of the 6 lawful grounds for processing personal data under the GDPR? A. Consent. B. Public interest. C. Contractual necessity. D. Commercial benefit. Correct answer. D. Commercial benefit. The GDPR recognizes 6 lawful bases, but commercial benefit is not one of them. What does the GDPR require of controllers when engaging data processors? A. Allow processors to establish their own processing policies. B. Provide processors with complete autonomy. C. Enter into a legally binding contract detailing the processing relationship. D. Ensure processors do not handle personal data directly. Correct answer. C. Enter into a legally binding contract detailing the processing relationship. This contract must outline obligations, responsibilities, and processing terms. How does the GDPR define a data controller? A. An individual or entity processing data on behalf of another. B. An entity that determines the purposes and means of data processing. C. An individual responsible for data security. D. A supervisory authority regulating data protection. Correct answer. B. An entity that determines the purposes and means of data processing. Controllers decide why and how data is processed. In what context does the GDPR's accountability principle primarily apply? A. Establishing lawful basis for processing. B. Demonstrating compliance with GDPR requirements. C. Ensuring appropriate technical and organizational measures. D. Limiting the purposes of processing. Correct answer: B. Demonstrating compliance with GDPR requirements. Controllers must document and show adherence to GDPR principles. What is the primary role of the GDPR's integrity and confidentiality principle? A. Establishing data retention periods. B. Preventing unauthorized access, alteration, or loss of data. C. Ensuring transparency of processing activities. D. Balancing interests between controllers and data subjects. Correct answer: B. Preventing unauthorized access, alteration, or loss of data. This principle mandates appropriate security measures to protect data. How can controllers manage vendor risk under the GDPR? By choosing reliable processes and maintaining compliance throughout the arrangement. B. By storing all data on the cloud. C. By outsourcing data protection entirely. D. By limiting data processing to household activities. Correct answer: A. By choosing reliable processes and maintaining compliance throughout the arrangement. Vendor risk management includes due diligence and consistent oversight. What is required when processing personal data by automated means? A. Data encryption. B. Compliance with GDPR principles. C. Explicit consent. D. Approval from the European Commission. Correct answer: B. Compliance with GDPR principles. Processing by automated means must adhere to all GDPR principles, including accountability and data minimization. What is the significance of the data minimization principle? A. It limits data processing to a single use. B. It mandates data processing for specified purposes only. C. It limits data collection to what is necessary for processing purposes. D. It restricts data processing to member states. Correct answer: C. It limits data collection to what is necessary for processing purposes. Data minimization ensures only relevant and necessary data is collected and processed. What is one of the conditions for lawful processing of special categories of personal data? A. Legitimate interests. B. Explicit consent. C. Contractual necessity. D. Storage limitation. Correct answer: B. Explicit consent. Special categories of personal data require explicit consent or one of the other exceptions specified in Article 9. What is the purpose of a GDPR controller-processor contract? A. To secure data from breaches. B. To clearly outline the subject matter, duration, and responsibilities. C. To transfer data between controllers and processes. D. To monitor data subjects' activities. Correct answer: B. To clearly outline the subject matter, duration, and responsibilities. Controller-processor contracts define key aspects, including obligations and rights. What does processing personal data by manual means entail? A. Manual transmission of data. B. Processing personal data that forms part of a filing system. C. Recording personal data in a paper file. D. Using manual encryption techniques. Correct answer: B. Processing personal data that forms part of a filing system. The GDPR covers processing activities for manual records that form or are intended to form part of a filing system. What is a key component of the GDPR's transparency principle? A. Making data available to third-party processors. B. Providing data subjects with clear and concise information about processing activities. C. Establishing technical safeguards for data storage. D. Offering opt-out mechanisms for all processing activities. Correct answer: B. Providing data subjects with clear and concise information about processing activities. Which of the following is a primary function of a privacy notice under the GDPR? A. To provide information about the organization's data processing activities to the supervisory authority. B. To inform data subjects of their rights and how the data is being processed. C. To collect explicit consent from data subjects. D. To offer data subjects a means of opting out of processing. Correct answer: B. To inform data subjects of their rights and how the data is being processed. How do layered notices help organizations comply with the transparency principle? A. By simplifying the information provided to supervisory authorities. B. By dividing information into different levels, making it accessible and concise. C. By focusing on data transfer mechanisms. D. By providing only the most critical information. Correct answer: B. by dividing information into different levels, making it accessible and concise. Which of the following is not required in a privacy notice under the GDPR? A. The identity and contact information of the data controller. B. The rights of data subjects to rectify and erase their data. C. A detailed explanation of the organization's internal data processing mechanisms. D. The legal basis for processing the data. Correct answer, C. A detailed explanation of the organization's internal data processing mechanisms. The right of access under the GDPR allows individuals to A. Delete their personal data from an organization's records. B. Obtain information about how the data is being processed. C. Prevent the processing of their personal data. D. Opt out of automated decision-making. Correct answer, B. Obtain information about how the data is being processed. Which document provides guidance on the right of access under the GDPR? A. Guidelines 01/2022 on Data Subject Rights Right of Access. B. Guidelines 5/2019 on the criteria of the right to be forgotten in search engines cases under the GDPR. C. Guideline 10/2020 on restrictions under Article 23 GDPR. D. Guidelines on data processing principles. Correct answer, A. Guidelines 01/2022 on Data Subject Rights Right of Access. The right of rectification under the GDPR allows data subjects to A. Access their personal data. B. Challenge automated decision-making. C. Correct inaccuracies in their personal data. D. Prevent the transfer of the data outside the EU. Correct answer, C. Correct inaccuracies in their personal data. Which of the following is not a condition under which a data subject can request the erasure of the data? A. The data subject withdraws consent. B. The data is no longer necessary for the purposes for which it was collected. C. The data is being processed by a third-party processor. D. The processing is unlawful. Correct answer, C. The data is being processed by a third-party processor. The right to be forgotten under the GDPR is particularly relevant in which context? A. Search engines. B. Data transfers. C. Direct marketing. D. Health data processing. Correct answer, A. Search engines. Guidelines 5/2019 on the right to be forgotten provide guidance for A. Balancing the right to erasure with freedom of expression. B. Determining data retention periods. C. The legal basis for processing health data. D. Managing data breaches. Correct answer, A. Balancing the right to erasure with freedom of expression. The right to restrict processing can be invoked when A. The accuracy of the data is contested. B. The data subject withdraws consent. C. The processing is for marketing purposes. D. The data is being transferred outside the EU. Correct answer, A. The accuracy of the data is contested. Data subjects can object to processing based on legitimate interests. A. At any time. B. Only if they provide a valid reason. C. Only if they withdraw consent. D. If the processing poses a significant risk to their rights. Correct answer, A. At any time. The right of withdrawal allows data subjects to A. Opt out of any data processing activity. B. Withdraw consent at any time. C. Restrict processing to specific purposes. D. Challenge decisions made through automated processing. Correct answer, B. Withdraw consent at any time. How does the GDPR protect against automated decision-making? A. By prohibiting it entirely. B. By allowing data subjects to opt out of it in all cases. C. By granting data subjects the right to request human review. D. By requiring explicit consent for all automated decisions. Correct answer, C. By granting data subjects the right to request human review. The right to data portability enables individuals to A. Request the deletion of the data from all records. B. Access the personal data in a structured format. C. Transfer the data between controllers in a usable format. D. Prevent the data from being transferred outside the EU. Correct answer, C. Transfer the data between controllers in a usable format. Article 23 of the GDPR allows for restrictions on data subjects' rights in specific circumstances, including A. Marketing purposes. B. Public safety and national security. C. Third-party processing. D. International data transfers. Correct answer, B. Public safety and national security. Guideline 10/2020 on restrictions under Article 23 GDPR emphasizes A. The need for proportionality and safeguarding fundamental rights. B. The requirement for data subjects' explicit consent. C. The importance of informing supervisory authorities. D. The use of pseudonymization in sensitive data processing. Correct answer, A. The need for proportionality and safeguarding fundamental rights. The right to be forgotten can be denied in cases where a. The data subject withdraws consent. b. The processing is necessary for compliance with a legal obligation. c. The data is inaccurate. d. The processing lacks a valid legal basis. Correct answer: b. The processing is necessary for compliance with a legal obligation. The right to restrict processing is particularly useful in scenarios involving a. Consent-based processing. b. Public interest processing. c. Disputes over data accuracy. d. Automated decision-making. Correct answer: c. Disputes over data accuracy. Data portability is beneficial for a. Enabling data subjects to choose between different service providers. b. Restricting data processing activities. c. Ensuring that data subjects can access the data in a physical format. d. Preventing data transfers to third-party countries. Correct answer: a. Enabling data subjects to choose between different service providers. The GDPR's transparency principle requires organizations to a. Obtain explicit consent for all data processing activities. b. Provide clear information to data subjects about processing activities. c. Allow data subjects to opt out of processing at any time. d. Store personal data securely. Correct answer: b. Provide clear information to data subjects about processing activities. Which of the following is not covered by data subjects' right to access? a. The purposes of processing. b. The categories of personal data being processed. c. The methods used to store and secure data. d. The recipients of the data. Correct answer: c. The methods used to store and secure data. The GDPR emphasizes that consent must be a. Renewed annually. b. Easy to withdraw. c. Given explicitly in writing. d. Only used for specific processing activities. Correct answer: b. Easy to withdraw. The right of rectification ensures a. That inaccurate data can be corrected. b. That data subjects can request erasure of the data. c. That data processing activities are lawful. d. That data subjects can access the data. Correct answer: a. That inaccurate data can be corrected. How does the right to object differ from the right to restrict processing? a. The right to object applies to specific purposes, while the right to restrict can apply more broadly. b. The right to restrict is permanent, while the right to object is temporary. c. The right to object can be used in all processing scenarios, while the right to restrict is limited to specific contexts. d. The right to restrict applies to legitimate interests only. Correct answer: a. The right to object applies to specific purposes, while the right to restrict can apply more broadly. How do layered notices improve transparency? a. By dividing information into manageable levels, making it accessible. b. By providing detailed explanations for each processing activity. c. By offering data subjects opt-out mechanisms at each layer. d. By focusing on data retention policies. Correct answer: a. By dividing information into manageable levels, making it accessible. The right to restrict processing can be particularly relevant for a. Direct marketing. b. Public interest processing. c. Processing based on legitimate interests. d. Household activities. Correct answer: c. Processing based on legitimate interests. Which of the following statements about consent under the GDPR is correct? a. Consent can be given implicitly through the provision of data. b. Consent must be specific to each processing activity. c. Consent is valid indefinitely unless withdrawn. d. Consent is always required for lawful processing. Correct answer: b. Consent must be specific to each processing activity. The GDPR's transparency principle aims to a. Ensure that data subjects have control over their personal data. b. Allow data subjects to access and correct the data. c. Provide clear and concise information about processing activities. d. Prevent unlawful data transfers. Correct answer: c. Provide clear and concise information about processing activities. What technical measure converts readable data into an unreadable format, providing a robust defense against unauthorized access? a. Pseudonymization. b. Encryption. c. Access control. d. Authentication. Correct answer: b. Encryption. Description. Encryption protects data by converting it into a form only accessible by those with a decryption key, ensuring data security. What type of access control mechanism restricts data access to authorized personnel based on their roles? a. Authentication. b. Role-based access control. c. Multi-factor authentication. d. Pseudonymization. Correct answer: b. Role-based access control. Description: role-based access control assigns access permissions to individuals based on their roles within an organization, limiting data exposure. What security measure replaces identifiable information with substitutes, reducing risks of associating data with individuals? A. Pseudonymization. B. Encryption. C. Anonymization. D. De-identification. Correct answer: A. Pseudonymization. Description: pseudonymization replaces identifiable information with pseudonyms, reducing the risk of linking data back to individuals. How soon must a data breach be reported to supervisory authorities under the GDPR? A. Within 24 hours. B. Within 48 hours. C. Within 72 hours. D. Within 1 week. Correct answer: C. Within 72 hours. Description: the GDPR mandates that breaches be reported to supervisory authorities within 72 hours of discovery, ensuring swift response and transparency. What document provides practical examples and guidelines for managing personal data breaches? A. Guidelines 01/2021. B. Guidelines 9/2022. C. Transfer Impact Assessment. D. Guidelines 2/2018. Correct answer: A. Guidelines 01/2021. Description: Guidelines 01/2021 offers practical examples for handling data breaches, emphasizing internal reporting, communication, and response strategies. What key vendor management provision ensures third-party vendors maintain appropriate security measures? A. Accreditation. B. Contractual agreements. C. Regular audits. D. Secure transfer protocols. Correct answer: B. Contractual agreements. Description: contracts with vendors must include provisions for security measures, breach notifications, and compliance audits to maintain data protection. What aspect of data sharing ensures only necessary information is transferred? A. Secure transfer protocols. B. Documented agreements. C. Encryption. D. Data minimization. Correct answer: D. Data minimization. Description: data minimization limits shared information to what is necessary for the intended purpose, reducing exposure and risk. What responsibility do joint controllers have in managing data processing activities? A. They must monitor third-party compliance. B. They must define and communicate their responsibilities. C. They must encrypt all data transfers. D. They must maintain separate records. Correct answer: B. They must define and communicate their responsibilities. Description: joint controllers must define and communicate their responsibilities, ensuring transparency and availability to data subjects. What privacy principle requires data protection to be integrated into products and services from inception? A. Accountability. B. Data protection by design. C. Data minimization. D. Purpose limitation. Correct answer: B. Data protection by design. Description: data protection by design integrates privacy measures into systems and processes, ensuring compliance from inception. What type of documentation must organizations maintain to demonstrate GDPR compliance? A. DPIAs. B. Processing activity records. C. Data sharing agreements. D. Breach notifications. Correct answer: B. Processing activity records. Description: organizations must document processing activities, including categories of data, purposes of processing, and retention periods, to demonstrate compliance. What situation necessitates a data protection impact assessment? DPIA. A. Processing children's data. B. Processing sensitive data on a large scale. C. Data breach. D. Vendor management. Correct answer: B. Processing sensitive data on a large scale. Description: DPIAs assess the impact of processing activities likely to pose a high risk, including large-scale processing of sensitive data. What is a key responsibility of a data protection officer, DPO? A. Monitoring processing activities. B. Approving data transfers. C. Conducting audits. D. Documenting data processing. Correct answer: A. Monitoring processing activities. Description: the DPO advises on GDPR compliance, monitors processing activities, and cooperates with supervisory authorities. What is a key goal of regular privacy program audits? A. To review processing activities. B. To ensure vendor compliance. C. To conduct TIAs. D. To update data protection measures. Correct answer: A. To review processing activities. Description: audits ensure compliance with GDPR requirements by reviewing processing activities, security measures, and access controls. What is the rationale for the GDPR's restrictions on international data transfers? A. To maintain EU data protection standards. B. To prevent data breaches. C. To reduce data sharing. D. To simplify compliance. Correct answer. A. To maintain EU data protection standards. Description: the GDPR restricts data transfers to ensure EU-level protections are maintained, preventing unauthorized access and misuse. What document outlines the interplay between Article 3 and Chapter 5 of the GDPR? A. Guidelines 01/2021b, Guidelines 05/2021c, Recommendations 01/2020d, Guidelines 9/2022. Correct answer. B. Guidelines 05/2021. Description: Guidelines 05/2021 clarifies how Article 3 and Chapter 5 interact, outlining conditions for data transfers. How do standard contractual clauses, SCCs, facilitate data transfers to non-EU jurisdictions? A. They ensure data protection standards are maintained. B. They simplify transfer impact assessments. C. They permit transfers to any jurisdiction. D. They reduce reporting requirements. Correct answer. A. They ensure data protection standards are maintained. Description: SCCs provide contractual safeguards to maintain data protection standards during transfers to non-EU jurisdictions. What mechanism allows multinational companies to transfer personal data within the corporate group? A. Standard contractual clauses. B. Binding corporate rules. C. Codes of conduct. D. Transfer impact assessments. Correct answer. B. Binding corporate rules. Description: binding corporate rules, BCRs, allow multinational companies to transfer data within the group, with supervisory authority approval. What mechanism can facilitate international data transfers through compliance verification? A. Codes of conduct and certifications. B. Binding corporate rules. C. SCCs. D. Transfer impact assessments. Correct answer. A. Codes of conduct and certifications. Description: codes of conduct and certifications offer alternative transfer mechanisms, demonstrating compliance with GDPR standards. What guideline outlines derogations allowing data transfers without additional safeguards? Let's continue. A. Guidelines 05/2021b, Guidelines 2/2018c, Guidelines 01/2021d, Recommendations 01/2020. Correct answer. B. Guidelines 2/2018. Description: Guidelines 2/2018 provides details on derogations under Article 49, allowing transfers without additional safeguards, including consent, contractual necessity, and public interest. What key safeguards should organizations implement before transferring data internationally? A. Secure transfer protocols. B. Data minimization. C. Transfer impact assessments. D. Encryption. Correct answer. C. Transfer impact assessments. Description: TIAs ensure that the destination country's legal framework provides adequate protection and may lead to supplementary measures if necessary. What does accountability require from organizations processing personal data? A. Protecting personal data by design. B. Maintaining documentation to demonstrate compliance. C. Cooperating with regulatory authorities. D. All of the above. Correct answer. D. All of the above. Description: accountability encompasses protecting data by design, maintaining documentation to show compliance, and cooperating with regulators, ensuring comprehensive adherence to GDPR requirements. What are organizations processing large amounts of sensitive data required to do? A. Conduct a data protection impact assessment. B. Appoint a data protection officer. C. Notify supervisory authorities. D. All of the above. Correct answer. A. Conduct a data protection impact assessment. Description: DPIAs assess the potential impact of processing activities on individuals, identifying and mitigating risks for activities likely to pose a high risk. What must organizations handling personal data do to comply with the GDPR's transparency principle? A. Inform individuals of processing purposes. B. Obtain explicit consent for all processing activities. C. Publish annual reports on processing activities. D. Maintain accurate records. Correct answer. A. Inform individuals of processing purposes. Description: transparency requires informing individuals of processing purposes, data categories, and their rights, ensuring informed consent and compliance with GDPR principles. How do secure transfer protocols help ensure data security? A. By preventing unauthorized access during transfer. B. By limiting shared data. C. By ensuring only necessary data is transferred. D. By encrypting data. Correct answer. A. By preventing unauthorized access during transfer. Description: secure transfer protocols protect data by securing data in transit, preventing unauthorized access and reducing the risk of data breaches. What does a DPIA include to assess processing activities impact? A. Description of processing activities. B. Risks and mitigation measures. C. Assessment of necessity and proportionality. D. All of the above. Correct answer: D. All of the above. Description: a DPIA must include a description of processing activities, an assessment of their necessity and proportionality, risks to data subjects, and mitigation measures. What role do Guidelines 01/2021 play in breach notification? A. Clarifying reporting responsibilities. B. Providing practical examples. C. Outlining breach response strategies. D. All of the above. Correct answer: D. All of the above. Description: Guidelines 01/2021 provides practical examples, clarifies reporting responsibilities, and outlines response strategies, ensuring efficient and transparent breach management. What is a potential violation of the GDPR's data minimization principle? A. Sharing personal data without consent. B. Retaining data longer than necessary. C. Processing data for multiple purposes. D. Storing records with incomplete information. Correct answer: B. Retaining data longer than necessary. Description: the data minimization principle requires data retention to be limited to the necessary period, preventing unauthorized access and unnecessary processing. What should organizations do to ensure vendor compliance with GDPR standards? A. Audit vendors regularly. B. Include GDPR-compliant contracts. C. Conduct pre-contractual due diligence. D. All of the above. Correct answer: D. All of the above. Description: vendor compliance is ensured by pre-contractual due diligence, GDPR-compliant contracts, and regular audits, mitigating risks of non-compliance. What is a primary lawful basis for processing employee data under GDPR? A. Employee consent. B. Legitimate interest. C. Public interest. D. Contractual necessity. Correct answer: D. Contractual necessity. Explanation: employee data processing is often necessary for performing employment contracts, making it a key lawful basis under GDPR. How should an organization balance privacy and monitoring in a BYOD program? A. Only monitor personal devices after consent. B. Apply blanket surveillance to all devices. C. Separate personal and business data on devices. D. Prohibit BYOD programs. Correct answer: C. Separate personal and business data on devices. Explanation: separating personal and business data ensures necessary corporate monitoring without infringing on employee privacy. What role does an EU Works Council play in data protection compliance? A. Enforces data protection laws. B. Consults on data processing policies. C. Approves workplace surveillance. D. Audits employee records. Correct answer: B. Consults on data processing policies. Explanation: EU Works Councils advise on data processing policies, ensuring employee data is handled legally and appropriately. Which GDPR principle is crucial for storing personnel records? A. Data minimization. B. Integrity and confidentiality. C. Storage limitation. D. Accountability. Correct answer: C. Storage limitation. Explanation: storage limitation mandates that records are kept only for as long as necessary, minimizing unnecessary retention. What is the key challenge in establishing whistleblowing systems under GDPR? A. Providing anonymous reporting. B. Ensuring explicit consent. C. Complying with lawful processing criteria. D. Protecting whistleblower identities. Correct answer: D. Protecting whistleblower identities. Explanation: protecting identities is critical to maintaining whistleblower anonymity, ensuring their safety and GDPR compliance. How does the GDPR apply to surveillance by public authorities? A. It prohibits all surveillance activities. B. It allows surveillance if authorized by law. C. It mandates data anonymization. D. It requires data subjects' consent. Correct answer: B. It allows surveillance if authorized by law. Explanation: the GDPR allows processing by public authorities if it serves a lawful purpose and is authorized by law. How does the GDPR ensure the protection of biometric data? A. It prohibits biometric data processing. B. It mandates explicit consent. C. It requires encryption of biometric data. D. It exempts biometrics from GDPR scope. Correct answer: B. It mandates explicit consent. Explanation: Biometric data falls under special categories, requiring explicit consent before processing, ensuring additional protection. What is a key principle to follow in workplace monitoring activities? A. Lawful basis and transparency. B. Broad employee consent. C. Complete prohibition of monitoring. D. Mandatory anonymization. Correct answer: A. Lawful basis and transparency. Explanation: monitoring must be based on a lawful basis and disclosed transparently to employees to comply with GDPR. What does the EDPB's Guidelines 3/2019 focus on? A. Data processing through cookies. B. Processing data through video devices. C. Interception of communications. D. Geolocation tracking. Correct answer: B. Processing data through video devices. Explanation: the guidelines provide guidance on video device usage, ensuring data processing complies with GDPR principles. What is required for lawful interception of communications under GDPR? A. Consent from all parties. B. Authorization from a supervisory authority. C. Compliance with e-Privacy Directive. D. Explicit consent. Correct answer: C. Compliance with e-Privacy Directive. Explanation: the e-Privacy Directive governs electronic communications, requiring compliance alongside GDPR for lawful interception. What distinguishes processing under legitimate interests from consent? A. Legitimate interests require no balancing test. B. Legitimate interests apply to all processing. C. Legitimate interests must balance against data subject rights. D. Consent is always a fallback option. Correct answer: C. Legitimate interests must balance against data subject rights. Explanation: a balancing test ensures legitimate interests don't infringe on data subjects' rights, unlike consent-based processing. How does GDPR affect storage of employee records? A. It requires encryption of records. B. It prohibits storing sensitive data. C. It mandates data minimization and secure storage. D. It limits retention to 12 months. Correct answer: C. It mandates data minimization and secure storage. Explanation: GDPR storage limitation and integrity principles require organizations to store only necessary data securely. What is a critical compliance challenge in geolocation tracking? A. Obtaining explicit consent. B. Limiting data retention. C. Anonymizing geolocation data. D. Ensuring tracking transparency. Correct answer: D. Ensuring tracking transparency. Explanation: individuals must be informed of tracking activities, ensuring transparency to comply with GDPR. How does GDPR handle biometric data processing? A. Through lawful processing criteria. B. By banning biometric data use. C. By excluding biometrics from its scope. D. Through encryption requirements. Correct answer: A. Through lawful processing criteria. Explanation: biometrics fall under special categories, requiring explicit consent or another lawful basis for processing. What does an organization need to consider when implementing workplace monitoring? A. Limiting monitoring to necessary activities. B. Broad consent from employees. C. Data anonymization for all monitoring. D. Anonymizing only sensitive data. Correct answer: A. Limiting monitoring to necessary activities. Explanation: monitoring should be minimal and specific, ensuring necessary activities are prioritized to comply with GDPR. What is a key difference between GDPR and e-Privacy Directive in surveillance? A. GDPR prohibits all surveillance. B. E-Privacy Directive applies only to ISPs. C. E-Privacy Directive specifies electronic communication rules. D. GDPR doesn't cover electronic surveillance. Correct answer: C. E-Privacy Directive specifies electronic communication rules. Explanation: the e-Privacy Directive regulates electronic communication, complementing GDPR for surveillance activities. How can companies ensure GDPR compliance in BYOD programs? A. Mandate encryption on all devices. B. Require employee consent. C. Separate personal and business data. D. Limit device usage to business hours. Correct answer: C. Separate personal and business data. Explanation: this separation ensures business data is securely monitored, without infringing on personal data and privacy rights. What key role do works councils play in employment data processing? A. Enforcing GDPR fines. B. Overseeing processing activities. C. Ensuring secure storage. D. Approving data minimization. Correct answer. B. Overseeing processing activities. Explanation. Works councils consult on processing activities, ensuring employee data is managed legally and compliantly. How do whistleblowing systems comply with GDPR? A. Through explicit whistleblower consent. B. By anonymizing reports. C. By securing sensitive information. D. By providing supervisory authority oversight. Correct answer. C. By securing sensitive